it's good. So we had Mitch Garver who tore it up, hitting a home run already today. Mr. Max Muncy in our normal first base slot. We're rotating some second basemen in there with Profar using Muncy for second base as well. First base, we've got Max Muncy usually. Christian Walker. We can put Profar in there. We can put Jay Bruce in there, which just he's out with an oblique injury. Could miss some time. What have you heard about Jay Bruce?
Yeah. I mean, he's on the shelf.
Yeah, it's not good. The right oblique is basically what ruined Miguel Cabrera's career. I mean, that's a true story. He just couldn't get healthy. He didn't sit long enough and refused to take his time off. Jay probably will be smarter than that and just take whatever time off he needs, but who knows?
Yeah, I would imagine he's going to be out for a little while. I mean, when you look at how long Judge was out earlier this year, I believe it was a oblique or a lat. I mean, they're the same thing, basically, kind of. Not really, but sort of.
So, yeah. Anyways, we picked up Elvis Andrus as our normal shortstop, backing up Freddie Galvis with him, who's been good leading into the All-Star break, not so hot since then. You insisted on Hunter Dozier, which wasn't necessarily a big name for me, but he put up some numbers yesterday.
Yeah, I mean that offense is has its moments, but a lot of those guys collectively or even individually are playing really well from a fantasy perspective. Merrifield, Mondesi just went on to the IL, but you got Merrifield, you've got Dozier, Cuthbert, Soler, Gordon. All of those guys have been pretty fantasy relevant. So you just look at his stats, and he's not a guy that a lot of people are targeting. But I think he's doing well. You got Marcus Simeon too in the shortstop position.
Oh yeah, definitely. Simeon's been good. We're really deep at shortstop, so I feel really comfortable with that. Of course, we had Christian Yelich first overall, who has got a home run today again already, and I believe 4 stolen bases since the All-Star break already.
Yeah, and I think that's what really separates him versus like a Bellinger or a Trout. I mean, Trout steals some bases more than a guy that produces a lot of the stats that he does. But this year specifically, he's kind of slowed down, and Yelich has put up quite a few stolen bases. I think he's in the mid-20s now, like 23 for the year, maybe.
Oh, yeah. Yep, he's, I think, 4th or 5th on the steal list in the NL. I could be wrong. I was looking at it, before we were drafting. But number 1 in home runs in the NL, I do believe, especially with this home run today. Yeah, man. I mean, he if he could get the average up just a little bit more, he could fight for close to a triple crown and maybe a quadruple crown with leading the league in steals possibly. But that would be a stretch. But it'd be fun. We also have Nomar Mazara, who is a guy we thought. He has a nice pedigree, right? He hasn't really lived up to the hype of who he is, but a nice guy to round out our outfield with George Springer, who leads off for that potent Houston offense, and Hunter Renfroe, who is good for at least a home run a week.
Well, the thing about Mazara that I like, when I really started following baseball again, it was a couple of years ago. I believe it was in Mazara's rookie season. And back then, this was only 3-4 years ago, he couldn't hit lefties. I mean, he was a platoon player against right-handed pitching, couldn't hit lefties, but him and Conforto have been, given the opportunity to get those regular at-bats, and they've gotten a lot better at hitting left-handed pitching. Still not obviously their strong suit, but not to the point where they're getting platooned out of the lineup. And so it's been nice to watch his progression. Conforto was the guy that I picked up in a lot of my best ball leagues. Anybody that had a little injury designation going into the All-Star break, for whatever reason on the best ball leagues, even if these guys were coming out of the injured list on the day after the All-Star break, these guys just dropped in their ADP and were able to steal them at way later rounds than they should have. Conforto being one.
So the last couple of guys on the team, Adam Frazier, who has been a solid second baseman for Pittsburgh. He doesn't play full time, but a good guy to fill in if we need him. And then Harrison Bader, another guy that's a rookie and has a lot of potential. Doesn't see a lot of playing time in the very crowded St. Louis outfield, but with an injury here or there, or maybe a trade at some point, he could see some full time playing time.
I want you to check and see if there's somebody available because he's been red hot.
All right, I'm on.
I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you who it is. I don't want these guys stealing.
All right, why don't you send it in our chat real quick? And
No. I don't even need to do that. You know who I'm talking about.
Well, I mean, obviously Frankie Montas, right? No, I'm just kidding.
No, you know who I'm talking about. He's an outfielder. You know my guy.
I know your guy. Somebody else drafted him. Remember? I got mad. He was first in my queue, and somebody drafted him.
No, I don't recall that.
Yeah. Well, the highest ad guy right now is Travis d'Arnaud because he just hit 3 home runs.
We are talking about Tyler O'Neill, right?
Of course. Yeah, I believe somebody drafted him.
I just
Tyler O'Neill and Jose Martinez is the first 2 guys I thought of.
Yeah, well, Tyler O'Neill has gotten his average up to like 270, 280. He's just been on fire recently, and shame on me. I keep forgetting to just put him into my 10 and 25 cent contest that I play in passing here.
All right. Well, Cha-Cha is listening in, so let me double check O'Neill. Oops, I went too far.
See, I remember you getting mad about Jose Martinez, but I don't remember Tyler O'Neill. Of course, I didn't pay attention to the second half so much.
Yeah, he was drafted. He is owned by... Who's got him? Can't tell. Doesn't say. Still getting used to this Fantrax I've never used before. But yeah, he is on a team. Yeah. He got drafted, and Martinez. Both guys are in my player pool. But it was late, and we were moved on to golf, and so I was trying not to interrupt us too much. But yeah, gotcha. I mean, we can talk about it. We can start a chat a little bit later tonight and look to see if we need to make some moves. For the pitching staff, I thought we did pretty well with our pitching staff. We went heavy early, and then kind of just took value where it drafted to us. So we started off with Blake Snell and Chris Sale in our second and third rounds, right? So so far so good. Sale got kind of blasted the other night, right? But he also struck out like 10 players.
I wasn't paying attention to Sale's performance. I paid more attention to Snell.
Yeah, he struck out 7, but gave up 5 runs. So, you win some, you lose some. And Archer did the same thing for us. I think he gave up 5 runs and struck out 10.
Well, Archer actually has been pretty solid so far. I think he had a solid start today.
Actually, you called him out while we were getting ready for the draft, and you said, "Hey, man, Chris Archer, I know we've been dogging on him, but check it out." So his last 3 starts, actually his last 5 starts, he's given up 1 run, 2 run, 3 run, 3 run, 3 run, which is perfectly fine, and he struck out 6, 8, 10, and 8. So, yeah, man, I mean, he's kind of back on track, right?
I mean, he's serviceable.
So how's Hugh doing tonight? Let me look at that. I'm just starting to look. Hugh Darvish, earlier today, struck out 7, gave up 0 runs.
Yeah, and Hugh Darvish was a guy that I was big on. He had all those walk problems at the beginning of the year, but he seemed to solve a lot of them, which kind of makes sense. When I wasn't high on him going into the beginning of the year, and then Doug got me going on Yu Darvish, and he made me buy in, and I was like, man, this guy, he's just too good to be bad. And then the season came, and if you watch the games, you're like, man, he just struggled. He just found those times to struggle. And when Yu Darvish was at his best in Texas, he would have those moments, but he always, to me, seemed like a guy kind of in the same ilk of Justin Verlander, who struggled in the first inning. And if he could get through that first inning, then he would be lights out the rest of the game. But from the time that he left the Rangers, he just seemed to not have it together. These last couple starts, it seems like he's kind of putting it together, and not necessarily in the most friendliest of ballparks. I mean, Cincinnati's not necessarily the most formidable offense that's out there, but it's certainly they play in a park that can really punish mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, Blake Snell and Chris Sale, Yu Darvish, I believe. Nope, Matt Boyd was our next pitcher, who has been incredible and has got to get traded to a contender at some point, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would think so.
I mean, he's got 152 strikeouts right now in 114 innings. We talked about him a little bit in the preseason because he won us some money in the preseason DFS, and I don't know if it was you that I think you mentioned that his velocity had been up and he gave up the cutter after all the launch angle stuff, and then somebody else was listening said he had added a third off-speed pitch, which they had predicted he was going to do better, but I don't think anybody saw this guy coming in, 24 walks on the season, 152 Ks and 114 innings. That's pretty incredible.
No, I mean, I was not a Matt Boyd truther at the beginning of the year. He was not on my radar. It took several starts for me to kind of, come around, especially because that first start I think that he had was maybe against Kansas City. The second one was it was against Toronto. It was against Toronto. He struck out like 9 guys. But if you remember back to that early Blue Jays, the beginning of the year, I mean, Zimmerman almost had a perfect game against him. David Hess pitched a beauty of a game against him. That team was just not in sync offensively at the beginning of the year. So it was hard to look at a particular pitching performance and say, yeah, like this guy is good, when guys like David Hess were pitching gems against that same offense. You kind of, you're like, yeah, it's more against who they're going against. But yeah, he's done really well.
I don't know if you have your metrics pulled up or you can pull them up, but I'm curious to see, he's averaging giving up 3 to 5 runs a game. I'm curious if that's from, actual batted against him or just how piss poor the Tigers defense is. The Tigers defense is just awful, terrible. So I'm just curious because he's doing his best Verlander impersonation, really. This is his starts since the middle of May. 8 Ks, 7, 8, 9, 8, 7, 6, 11, 13, 10. The dude is just lights out, but he's given up 4, 4, 4, 5, 4, 3, 3, 4, earned runs. I wonder how much of that is him and how much of that is just really bad team defense.
I mean, a sub-4 ERA, which is basically where he's sitting, is pretty decent. I mean, his FIP and xFIP are both 3.47, 3.35.
So excellent. So you're talking Cy Young Award for young Master Boyd.
I don't know about all of that.
He doesn't have enough wins. Those Cy Young guys always have like 20 wins, and he's not even going to be over 500 in wins because the Tigers are so bad.
Yeah, but I don't think he's not the guy. He's not that guy at least. I mean, he's in the. Let's take a look. I mean, is he
officially a rookie this year or not?
No,
I can't remember. I gotta look him up. How many?
Actually, as a matter of fact, let's see. Fangraphs back 2 days ago had an article about his trade value.
He's not a rookie. He's been up since 2000. Well, I don't know. That just says games per position. So,
see, the only reason that you might not trade him is you have him through 2023. He's not eligible for arbitration until next year. So, let's take a look at a couple of things here. I mean, when you're looking at your elite pitchers. Here's a guy that we didn't go after, or maybe we did, but he got picked up. A guy like Lance Lynn, who's having just a fantastic year, is out pitching a guy like Boyd, Charlie Morton, Cole. There's quite a few guys that are in front of him before I would start to consider. Not a lot. I mean, Bieber, Cole, Giolito, Morton, Lynn. Those are the guys that are kind of ahead of him in WAR. So. He's sitting at a 3. Bieber's at Lance Lynn is second to only Max Scherzer. Let that sink in for a second.
All right. That's pretty crazy.
The 2 starts that Lance Lynn had that were just absolute abominations early in the year, where he just gave up a ton of runs, were both the times that I put him on my DFS, and that's why I don't have a lot of DFS money right now.